Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service. Today, we're going to look at the relationship chart of King Charles III and his queen consort Camilla. I had heard a story. Actually, it was a psychic, I believe, online who actually does past lives, and they had spoken about how Camilla and Charles had been together in another lifetime, and they were painters traveling the world, and that they died together. And I even thought that was really interesting. I'm not really into the monarch, but I really am into studying relationships and really what drives people together, what makes them stick together, and what attracts them to one another. And I thought, wow, somebody had asked me to do this. And at the moment, I was thinking more about, I don't really want to do that. I have a lot of projects going on right now. But once I heard that psychic revelation, I went into the charts to look and I was blown away. So let us talk about, first, I'm going to look at the charts in a bi-wheel, and we're going to look at, ironically, how similar these two people are. It's amazing. It's like my reaction was, I'm looking at the same person. That's number one. We're going to also look at the connection that they have to that black moon Lilith, that planet or placement that draws us here, that drives us once we get here to kind of go back, if you will, or to pick up maybe where we left off somewhere before. And in this case, it ended up being so prominent that it almost blew my mind. So I can't wait to share that with you. So let's look at how these two people, star-crossed lovers, if you will, are so drawn to one another, and how, as astrologers, we might be able to see that in the chart so that when you're looking at your own relationships, here are some things that, I don't know, I've never seen one like this. That's why I'm so excited. So let's check it out. So what we have now is a bi-wheel. And in this bi-wheel, I want to show some things. It just so amazes me. We have her. Now she's going to be the outer wheel. The chart itself is set up on the inner wheel. So he's in here. She is out here. She has an ascendant of 2 degrees, 47 minutes of Leo. He has an ascendant of 5 degrees, 23 minutes of Leo. Their midheavens, hers is 9 degrees, 19 minutes of Aries. His is 13 degrees, 16 minutes of Aries. Okay, so I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what are the odds that they would have charts so alike? That's just the layout of the chart. So let me continue because there's more. We have their both charts feature a node moon conjunction in Taurus. Okay, hers is a little bit later, his earlier. His moon, by the way, is the exact degree of his mother's sun. So it's really interesting. But more than that, look at how Kronos is playing with these combinations. Kronos here is a little out. Now, how it affects Charles is different. It's actually in the moon axis. It's 22 degrees away. The moon of her, though, is 4 degrees away. So how interesting is all of that? Some other things I want to feature from this chart that I thought was so impactful was, let's look at this. You have a Chiron south node. That's the interaction. His Chiron, her south node. Her Chiron, his south node. In the combined chart, that's together. And it really does give you an idea that a lot of healing could be very oppressive, feels oppressive. Turning points can be very oppressive. Just look what's going on right now as their title has changed. It's a turning point that's difficult. Now he has this Sun Chiron. Now it's not a strong conjunction by any means. and it almost straddles the fifth and the fourth house. Now, his sun falls right on the cusp of the fifth house, and that's really telling because I think this is somebody who really, really wants to express themselves. And I feel that here we have the South Node Mercury in opposition to the North Node Moon. You get the impression that he's not ever been really allowed to do that. That by nature of his roots, that he had to remain within certain restrictions or limitations. And that sun on the fifth house cusp could be his wanting so much to step out. And the way in which he would choose to do that would be through alternative practices, or it's healing, it's turning points, and it's alternative thinking practices, people who are pioneers in whatever they do. And I think he is somebody who would really like to be seen as a champion or pioneer of something. And I know that he, long before it was fashionable, was an organic gardener. So here, I believe we're looking at this, but this is oppressive. Probably to her in this case, not as much to him. But isn't it interesting how it mixes in there? So we're talking about these Kronos, Node, Moon combinations, and I thought, here we go with the same person. Then we have the interacting South Node Chiron happening reciprocally. So that's not even a word. In mutual reception, I guess we could call it that, because one hits the other. In other words, it's mutually happening. And then we have, because the midheavens are about the same, we have this dynamic of Admetus here. Now, Admetus is telling us a lot. It tells us that there's a lot of stick-to-itiveness with regards to how each of them sees their future. And that is what they did when they stuck together even through his marriage with Diana. And so you could see where they were, firm and bound on that. But also, all of those things, till they could get together, were seen as obstacles. So they both had to ride out a lot of obstacles in order for their future. And it's almost like nothing happens for them till later in life, which again makes sense. They had to wait till, I think they didn't get married till 6 years after Diana died. So the reality is there was a lot of oppression for him particularly. And I like this. Node Venus is in the sign of the fourth house cusp, but it's also that illusionary type of, I'm so madly in love type thing, that he was so connected already through, I want to say it's almost like love at first sight, but it's like you never get over that first love. Well, in this case, I think it's because it had connotations from the past, and not as much in his chart, but in her chart, you see as the sun is running in opposition to the Black Moon Lilith. So she's driven, or her desire or her drive is for something of the past. For him, it's this magical love connection. Okay. I mean, this man loves deeply and truly, but the chances are that he can only love one woman. Even though it's in Libra, cardinal sign, he's very fixed. A lot of this man is a very fixed, which means once something happens, that's the direction that we go. So, with that said, moving on. The other factors, because I want to make sure I cover there is a lot. This was an amazing study for me, and I've got tons of notes. We're also going to look at it. There's a lot of public stuff here, which I'll get to. The Admetus was, I felt, the strongest, but if you look in his chart, it is he's resistant, and there's a lot around his that is unresolved. So there's a lot of unresolved issues, and a lot of it could be regarding the relationship. Now, one of the things, and they're not on here, is the asteroids. And ironically, Hera and, well, here is Juno. Okay. So though they don't really aspect the midheaven, okay, they are in perfect trine with their ascendants. Okay. So there was a lot of stuff about Hera being at the end of Pisces, and here we go again with a lot of 29-degree chart in his chart. Okay. There is a connection with his Jupiter as well as, and here I go, I have to go to the dial, but there's a lot for this. Now, Jupiter is one of his 29 degrees, and it does fall in that fifth house, but notice that the fifth house is intercepted. So it doesn't have like that direct line of communication, okay? So, here's somebody who probably is, happy with his children and what his children have done and how they are a shining face. And look at, there's a Juno, her Juno is not far. Now, again, that's 11 degrees. That is actually pretty far. So I would just say that her Juno happened to fall into his fifth house, that expression. So I can tell you that that's there. Let me just check my notes because there was something else. Sun conjunct Pluto. Oh, I'm talking about the combined chart. I'll get to that in a minute. Volcanus. Okay, when we get to the combined chart, I have a lot more. I don't know why I did this. Oh, here we go. The squared, okay, so remember that these people are very similar. So here we have a 12-degree Pluto. Here we have a 16-degree Pluto. And we have that, and we have to go to another chart to pick it up. And actually, I'm going to be able to tell us because I wrote it down. But we actually have, not only do we have Adamita up here, but we also have an asteroid up there. I do want to point that out, that the asteroid falls over here more in the earlier degrees, but then we've got that Juno and Hera both being aspected by that. I'm going to actually show these charts just briefly, one then the other, so I can go through these angles because they have the same, they are both affected by the same asteroids. Okay, now in her case, it might be a different set than his case, but realize that his ascendant is then going to still hit her stuff. In other words, her stuff and his stuff, here we go again, is going to be reciprocal by way of the ascendant, midheaven, descendant, and the IC. Okay, so I did have this. Let me find it very quickly. Okay, so I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this chart because I'm going to start going through the ascendant, midheaven, descendant asteroids. I think what we need to realize is that it affects both charts. That's the most important thing to realize in all of this. Now, I was talking about endings, and remember that I spoke a lot about that, briefly I spoke about that 29 degrees. And to me, when you see a lot of 29 degrees, that's what I was referring to with Jupiter. There's an inconjunct there. And what I gathered from this, and then you see this 1 degree of Amor, and that's a boundary, especially with people we love. But I really do feel, and by the way, it's only 2 degrees away with that 29, 27. Well, it's maybe 2.5 degrees away. And you see that endings is in direct inconjunct with Jupiter. And it's almost like this person wants to expand, but, and in order to do that, you have to create endings. But I really feel that there's an obligation to end things as a way to expand, okay, or heal Jupiter. And endings are obligatory related to that Jupiter. Okay, so I thought that was really interesting. But also remember now that endings for him falls in the house of the 6th house, and it makes me wonder if he will walk away from the king, his being king. And it's interesting because the ending of service, is featured there, and he has an obligation to end. And it's interesting because that's the fifth house, also the house of child. I don't want to get into that because that's really not what I wanted to do, but sometimes when you're doing this work, it's hard not to see things. So one of the things I wanted to talk about with regards to this, and let me pull up her chart too. So just make a note of this because I'm going to jump around, okay? And what we're going to be talking about is a lot of this. I did want to talk about endings because I believe it's the combined chart that it's going to become profound again. But for right now, I keep jumping ahead of myself and that just wastes time. Let us just talk about the ascendant, the descendant, the midheaven, and the IC. Which, regardless of whose chart you're looking at, and I'm going to start with him, it doesn't matter because I want you to realize that her chart would be also affected. Okay? So I'm going to start with his chart, and then I'll put it on pause, and then I'll pull it back to her chart. Boy, we have so much here. Okay. Here she is. All right. In his chart, and we're looking in right here. Okay, but again, you really need to understand that this is going to affect both charts because their ascendants are the same. Okay, but these are what he uses for tools. This is just something she'd have to deal with in her day-to-day life because it's his tools. And we see things like partnerships. So it's very important that he does things in a partnership, which is really interesting because he really does see himself as part of a duo, okay, which he is now. Okay, that was, I thought, interesting. Now, a lot of this other stuff is going to now come in as retrograde. Like, for example, Duke. Duke is about money. It's about dukes, money, the leaders. And so that's around, but it's retrograde. Tells me many things. They're in his environment. Maybe he doesn't always feel as respected by them. Maybe there are some of them he doesn't respect, okay? But they're there. Astrea is there, and it tells us that a lot of times it feels like his days are never done. That his life just seems to be one continuous, and I'm sure that that's only going to get worse with his new job. But every day, things just are, what he sees just continues on and on. I'm sorry, this is all related to the midheaven. So it's not a tool. This is actually where he's still applicable. He wants to do all his business with a partner. He wants, his people that he's dealing with or how he sees himself in the future is amongst these Duke type money, okay? That's where the importance is. Astrea is that things related particularly to, my God, he waited this long to be king. I should have known it was right when I think that's when I did notice Astrea. I'm like, wait a minute. Admetus is there as well as the asteroid is there as well as, no wonder, again, Astrea, Admetus, the Trans-Neptunian. I mean, my God, okay? So this is like we're just going to see this for this whole man's life, which is, kind of sad. I do think there could be some health concerns, okay, at some point. And that might, again, be stuff that might make him reevaluate his life. And as I said before, I do think that it's health-related things that will be cause a lot of the difficulties in his life. And that could have been even coming from the past, okay? And this could be the coronavirus, but we could go back. I mean, I don't know what his child was like, and I don't know if people were worried about his health all the time. I mean, he was the heir. So there could have been a very big concern about that. So his health, big factor. Okay, now I'm going to here. Well, I'm going to start with that, by the way, both charts, okay? It is more important than the ascendant. The ascendant is our tools. It's what we see around us day by day. Midheaven is more like our direction, and it's more like what the world sees in terms of what we're presenting to the world. So in this particular case, we're going to now be here. And with that said, you've got things like how slowly, well, again, Admetos, Apollo, Astrea, everything goes so slow for this person. And maybe some people think he's slow, okay? And he might be slow to also recognize the future. And that's not, well, that sounds funny, doesn't it? But yet, that's not so hard to believe if you were a part of a situation where you were sort of out of touch with how the common man is, okay? And he really is. I mean, both of them. I mean, remember those Taurus moons and everything? I'm not so sure they get it sometimes, and they're not around the common people enough to kind of get that. So slow. But I do think it's slow to see the future, which is right with it. I do feel that a lot of what he feels is destined. I really do feel like when something happens to him, it feels that this is destined. And I'm going to say that even from the perspective of stopping things, that sometimes these are people that have to think about, stopping and how destined it feels. It feels destined. I have to do this. This is also going to be true. We have sirens. I apologize. I don't know if you can hear them, but I can. But in any event, I apologize. It's very noisy here today. It's been really tough doing this. Boy, the retrogrades are killing me right now. Okay, so you have this person who oftentimes can play a very willing victim. I think it's a role he plays well. And what he could be victim to is, and he has to be careful, is lies. I do feel that he has a hard time because he feels really held by, literally held, like against your will held, with regards because of things that have happened in the past. In other words, the past really holds him accountable. At least that's really how he feels. And that past could be their history, he is a royal, or his own personal past. Waigata is another issue. So he does feel sorry for himself from time to time. Okay? That's in there. Now remember, this is all going to affect her as well in her personal surroundings because she too shares a very similar ascendant. Does she have the exact same asteroids? No. And we'll get to that in a moment. So let me just move on. One of the things I do want to point out is that poor Charles, and I am going to say it that way, has a huge amount of stuff that is showing up. And it doesn't seem like it is here, but it is, okay? Because in addition to having the Neptune Venus literally on his IC, and he does heal through that, so it is good that he was ultimately able to be with her, you do have things like being on his own, okay? Like being in love with her was literally a concept of he could, Persephone, be on his own. And it was painful to be on his own, even when he was married to somebody else, because there is a lot of passion in that relationship. I could really go on here. I can tell you that he felt a lot of pressure because of things that were going on in the home. But I'm thinking, here we go again, in the government or the firm or whoever it is that tells those people how they have to live. I think that's amazing. Again, 21st century people. It's talking about how he does want to serve, but he also feels humiliation through things that maybe happen while he's serving or through people that are serving him, or maybe he feels that humiliation in serving. I do feel that he feels there's a lot of pressure through mentors, through people that are teaching him, through people that are directing him. And there's a lot of pressure there. And it even talks about how the truth will set you free, particularly as it comes to Venus. So here we go with that. How that Venus caused a lot of chaos. Oh, Lordy be, it did. How it was it was almost the villain in all. I mean, there's a story to be written right here with these asteroids, and there's a number of them. It talks about the photography. It talks about how, and And I'm believing that some of this is Diana because she was so beautiful, and how this was just so hard for him. And he felt so alone. So when they teasingly say that he might have been jealous of her, he might have been. But I don't think it was just that. I think it comes down to, here we go again with that Neptune, and the fact that he was already in love with somebody else only compiles on this beautiful face and this beautiful woman, fourth house. So you see that, wow, that was just a story in and of itself. Again, please remember it relates to Camilla as well. So then I'm going to go to the descendant. I got to keep moving on this. And we see things like money. And we can see that he's kind of antisocial. I don't know how he is with money, but other people see him as antisocial. And he ends things a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was somebody who ends the conversations. He walks away. He does that, okay? I think that he does very much bow to his beautiful wife. He does think of her as very beautiful. I do feel that she is like a nursemaid. I know that sounds really funny. And we do play roles in our relationships, whether we want to or we don't. That's a fact, okay? Her role, or how he sees her, I bet you, is as a nursemaid. But it's also how other people are with him. He's totally catered to. This is a person who, as I said with those moons, man, these are people that appreciate the finer things in life. These are privileged and entitled people. And so no shocker there. Also with coin there, and Rockefeller, and he's at peace with all this Rockefeller business. I mean, all this money, all these eights, he's just totally at peace with it. But it's also his mother and his relationship with his mother. And I would not be surprised to say that his mother was in many ways seen as his partner. Not that she didn't have the prince, she did. But that maybe he utilized his mother, or he was constantly in dispute with his mother over her resistance over his partner. Yeah, because that all fits too, because they create conversations within themselves. So everything that I've spoken to you about is going to be true in terms of his relationship with his mom. So, because she's there and she's so active in this chart. So with that said, I want to now look at hers. Now remember, I'm blown away because I'm thinking I'm talking to the same person. So she's going to fit in this whole chart so beautifully, and we'll get to the combined chart for that. But let me quickly go through her angles, which will also affect him. Okay, so just because you got to see this to believe it. First of all, not only does she have that 9 degree of Aries, but it makes me think that she will, with that 6 degree of Lilith, now we have the asteroid Lilith sitting there at 6 degrees, very, very close, that she will always be seen as the other woman. That's sort of sad in a way, isn't it? That she'll be seen as that other woman. And the irony is, I know that they like her right now, but do they? You got to go with these oppositions here. Her Neptune is also sitting on the IC. Did I not tell you we're looking at the same two people here? I mean, this is like the same person. So, and I do believe in things like that, those star-crossed love. I've never come across it, and I've done a lot of relationship work. That's why, wow, when I saw it, but holy cow. So anyway, she is very 12th house, so whereas his was 4th house, she's 12th house. They are in a really strong trine, their sons. They're both, he's 22 early and she's almost 21, so they're really close. And that makes their relationship a lot easier. Her Jupiter, I love the way her Jupiter and Panacea, is solving problems. That actually does come in aspects about 4 degrees away of his sun. So just some interactions that are occurring between them. And that happens to be her 4th house, the house of healing. And it sits on the cusp of the 5th house, the house of her expression. So she feels, now that she's married to him, and ever since she's been married to him, I think she feels more at home in this expression, though, again, she's always going to be seen unfortunately, as that other woman. Now, I think a goal was to get to this because it's the 11th house, the house of goals, and it sits right inside of that house. We have that moon and Kronos. So again, it's so destined, just like his chart said, and her chart, because she'll be affected by that. It's so destined, but so is the whole title, and so is all of this that's yet to come. But being together is really key with apparently the roles that each of them will be playing as we move into the future. Now, as I go on into this, and I'm going to now look at her chart, I'm going to start at the midheaven again, because I already did. Okay, you got that. You also have Eris there. Okay, now that's a lady that just throws up and causes a lot of like problems, you know. So her other womanness did cause a lot of problems. I had to point this out because some of these are more obscure things that we don't work with as much. I don't know why other astrologers haven't touched this material, but I have been blown away. So moving on, staying with that area, we have here Hopi. Hopi is for being attacked, but it's also about boundaries, okay? But it's also can be seen as an outsider. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff with Hopi. I did talk about Lilith. He's really interesting. Now, she could also have a lot of personal prejudices. I'm not going to say that, but Hopi could bring that. So I just want to throw that out there. Laplace is talking about lies. And I think there's a lot of lies surrounding this woman. And let's talk about the fact that Prince Charles and that whole story, they make it sound like the relationship he was with Diana, he wasn't with her. That's not true. I do believe he was with her the whole time. And I'm not just saying that because I saw The Crown, okay? Because that could have been made up. You know, they do things to sell those things. But I think it's true because I've seen the chart. And I don't think it would have been possible for these two people to stay away from one another. Not with that Venus-Neptune, not with all that crap going on there. I just don't think so, okay? Lilith at the midheaven, Astreas and Admetus as the midheaven. No, okay? No, there was a lot of lie. So, and there's lies on him as well. Remember, Fisher's also lies. I think it came on his ascendant. So there's a lot of lies. Not that we don't know they're lies, but there were lies, okay? She also has a feeling of being sort of restricted, abducted into this situation. But I do believe it excites her. There's a lot of excitement here, okay? But I think that comes in through him. I don't think her ascendant brings it in. That's when his ascendant comes on. Now you have that. Okay, I do have a little mark there. That's what that means. So going to she has a tremendous amount in both the ascendant of the chart and the descendant of the chart. Her midheaven and her IC had stuff, but not as much stuff. So I'm going to do the same order I did the king. So I'm going to go from here to the ascendant. Okay. Now, she has a lot more. First of all, it talks about narcissist. Now, does that mean she's a narcissist? I don't know. I kind of think she might surround herself with narcissists. And I think that she locks herself in with these people and then is like, whoa. Okay. I don't know if that's Charles, but I'm not going to say it's not, because remember that it doesn't affect this particular point. Okay, so I'm not sure he's in there or not. I'm not going to swear by it. I'm just going to say that she has it around her. What she does have that I know does affect him would be like Dionysus, which is alcoholism, or people that are on drugs and alcohol, or people who are into music or poetry. So there is, so we don't know. I don't know because I don't know this person. Does she drink a lot? Does she have addictions? Probably, possibly, but that's really not my concern. But interestingly enough, it does affect both people. It talks about structure and how this is a person who actually is good with structure and does better with structure. But again, lies are so prominent in the ascendant because there's another lie. The lies are, she might lie about wanting to be by herself. She might tell people a certain thing just because she wants to be left alone. So there could be lies that are related to, I want to go by myself. But it could also be that when she's by herself, the reason she's by herself, she might not be honest about. So there's a couple of things there. She's very slow in terms, here we go with slowness again, and in terms of work, especially if she's working alone. Okay, she might go a little bit slower. She does want to serve. She's very conscious of that. But she wonders a lot about whether or not she is either making a fool of herself or humiliating herself. It talks about, again, just being left awake at night because we're thinking about how to serve. And I think he has something similar, you know? Hecate says that the dreams are really important. Health issues are a factor, okay? She's also around clever people who tend to, or she could be a clever person who seems to escape her things that she's done bad, okay? Again, these are people that are very wealthy, entitled, privileged, and none of that surprises me. Minerva, she knows how to say and do the right thing. She knows how to hunt down the right people. There's a lot of 8-degree stuff for both of these people. There's a whole story of 8s in the fixed. That if we were just to read the story of all the stuff that fell in the number 8s in the fixed arena, we would have quite the tale, okay? Because here we have Pan, Anubis, and Minerva. Pan is like something where it's necessary evils, and it's like she hunts out things that are necessary evils, maybe as a way to please others, or maybe it's something that she requires in order to please herself. But again, this is all tools that she works with. She is very Uranian, so she, and that might be a real attraction for Charles because she is kind of unusual. And remember, Chiron Sun, there's this love of the unusual, things that are not like everything else. But you also have to remember that they both had mutually in their charts that one's south node affected the other's Chiron. Okay, well, your turning points, your healing, your alternative way of thinking is oppressive within that partnership. Tradition of this relationship plays a huge and heavy role, and it is oppressive. Okay, I do have to say that. One of the things that I think is really interesting, it doesn't affect hers, but when you get to Chase, which is an asteroid that I'm starting to play with in her chart, it is on his ascendant. So I don't think that he was chasing her, although he definitely wouldn't let her go. But I think she has chased him. And I think that either that or he's chased her, and that's been a real pain in the butt. Okay, it's like, no, we can't do this. There he is, you know, that kind of thing. So, and there is a real consciousness about her. She is very aware of what's going on. Again, titled and privileged. So not maybe as aware of how other people are living, but aware of what her surroundings are. So then we take that and we go to, I'm going to go down. Yeah, because her, I take that back. Her, yeah, here it is. I marked this wrong. Her, yeah, we don't have anything there. Her Aquarius stuff, which is where all the other 8 is, and I'm going to go through that because it is well worth discussing, is all in retrograde. Okay, so this is where her retrograde is. None of her trans-Neptunians, but this is where it is. And it talks about how, just like we saw with Charles, it's unending. So this relationship or how people see her, and there it is, Astrea, and as unending. So she sees him with unending days, unending issues related to interactions with others, Also with children. So she actually has child there, and there could be unresolved issues from her own past that haunt her, but also it could have something to do with her own children because she does have them. Not is interesting, okay, because this is her 8, not Pythia Odysseus. Now they're all retrograde, but I feel like it's not going to go the way she thinks with regards to being in a place maybe that's away or foreign. So when she goes on trips, things are not going to go the way she thinks. But I also feel it's a little too little and a little too late, which is very close to all the 8 degrees. It's early 9 degrees. And it feels like she has an intuition. She probably is pretty intuitive with regards to the people who are around her. She's able to sense their needs. But I got to tell you that it isn't going to be what she expects when she feels out of place, is what I'm going to get at, is that sometimes she feels very out of place. She takes risks with, or other people see her as a risk taker, but I think it's more how she is with other people. I don't necessarily think of her as a risk taker. The last thing I want to talk about is, again, pretty vast, which is her personal life. And here we see things like, there's a lot of memory about the price you pay for things. There's memories that goes back through her head. And she's at peace with a lot of things. And she has a lot of compassion. And it looks like for siblings. So it could be her siblings, but for pieces of things, it could be a lot of compassion for doing things in pieces, or her compassion shows itself in pieces. But I do believe that she needs to brace herself for things like betrayal, which I think she may have experienced in her life, and the fact that she's a very private person, but with Brace running exactly with Atlantis, it makes me think that there could, brace yourself is what I keep getting, brace yourself. And I think she does try to do that. There's a lot that she doesn't know about things, okay? That's what it feels like. And this could be related to her own family. And it could be related to a family business, Apollonia. But there just could be a lot of things that she doesn't know about. And this could even be within the family she now finds herself. There's so much karma here. Shocking to see karma show up on that, right? She takes the plunge because of karma. Here we go again in the personal life. It's bizarre world, the stuff I saw and seeing, okay? So she takes the plunge. She's bonded with people, and she's very close to family. I'm going to go with that. The truth sets her free. Did I not see that in Charles's chart? But she also, too, there's issues with, as she makes herself over, there is going to be some hubris. There's going to be some fate to pay. She needs to be concerned about her health. And she also has to be pondering, let's put it this way, she has a misconception about what evil is, or something that is, or what she might consider evil. Okay. And again, that is totally related to her personal life, so it could relate to her relationship. But I think we can see so far what I've been talking about, even though I'm talking about them too as people. Now, realize that every word I have spoken, every word can be applied to either chart, because his angles fall on her angles and her angles fall on his angles. It doesn't get better than that. Now, the next thing that I want to look at is the combined chart, which is where the pièce de résistance happens. So what we're looking at now is the chart of both of them. Remember about the South Node and Chiron? There it is. Let's talk here. Look at the Sun Cupido in the 3rd house. That's just amazing. Apollonia is there, so it's not far. Well, first of all, there are a lot of homes. So that's not too surprising. And as a result, a lot of neighborhoods, 3rd house. Mercury is there. And Venus happens to be in the 2nd house. So it's interesting how they're together, but they're not together. So I thought that was really interesting. Node moon, we talked about that. Node moon with Kronos not far away, we talked about that. So you see how even though it's a combined chart, not a lot has changed. We do have Hidalgo here, and we do have Amor here as asteroids. So there are boundaries, and they don't speak out. Okay, so there won't be any speaking out with regards to this chart. It is a midpoint chart, so I can't get the asteroids other than the asteroids that are already here on this chart. But realize that every time we spoke about what was there, it was both charts. Cupido is there, so there is an awareness of what they each look like now on the midpoint chart, but Cupido is also part of Charles's chart. So that's still there. Apollo, the fact that everything in their lives as a couple has gone very, very slowly is accurate as can be, and Admetos would still be there. So that is incredible. Their relationship has suffered a lot of interruptions and disruptions. The course of it has been disrupted. It is a highlight of the chart because Juno does fall at the descendant of the chart. Where it gets exciting is, and let me find it because it really does. Well, first of all, let's just talk about this for a second. This the vertex, it's equatorial ascendant, and it is like conjunct Lilith, and it's in the 11th house of this chart. And it does refer to the fact that there was one of these people were a third party in a relationship. I think they both were, because I think they both were married to other people prior to being together. And that is there's a lot of pressure. And interestingly enough, parenthood is also in there. So these are not the parents of each other's children. They're not. So I thought that was really very telling. Kronos happens to fall just now. First of all, realize that Moon in the 10th is like a form of recognition. It's much better if it's closer here, but there's a recognition here. And then Kronos is the goal. It falls in the 11th house. So that was really, really interesting. And Saturn happens to have crossed over these two spots recently, which is really interesting. The Black Moon Lilith, here we go, happens to be in a square with, I'm sorry, yeah, it's not a square. It's not even it's semi-sesquiquadrate. Anyway, it's a form of an in conjunct, but it's actually wide. Okay, so that didn't catch my eye there. However, what did catch my eye on this one is this is where it was, right here. Look at this. It squares. I was looking at the sun, but I really wanted to do is look at the moon. It squares the moon, which is so the moon, which is in the 10th house, the house of career and achievement and recognition, is square that Black Moon Lilith, which is in the 7th house of partnerships. And that tells me that this is a partnership that is very emotionally pulling to each of these people. No matter how much they have to work for it, there is this pull toward this relationship. And this, I thought, was, again, one of the most important factors of what I see. Now, if you want to continue this story, and it would be wise for us to do that, we would have to pull in the Pluto. And by the way, look, Saturn just in Aquarius hit these points right here. And it's interesting because his mother passed away, and second house, his value has changed. So that, and that's literally over here in the 7th to the 8th house, but again, it confers that there's a lot of this as you go from the 7th to the 8th house, but I just like the fact that it was so opposite all of this Leo stuff here in the second house, the house of worth, and that directly relates to what's happening in the 8th house. Okay? The house of combined resources, the house of combined monies, the house of death. Excuse me. So that was interesting. Okay. Now, here's something else that's very, very interesting. And this was another pull to that Black Moon Lilith. I know they're pulled to each other. Look at this, first of all, before I go on. Look at this. Okay? Look at this. They're in conjunct. There's an obligation. That's obligatory. That's what that means. Okay? So we have an obligation here. And as a result of that, it's in this combination chart. This is their chart together. And it is really interesting. He's the Scorpio. She is and it sextiles both of them. So it's an opportunity for them. It's a sextile. It feels good. It's an opportunity. But we do have all of these unresolved issues and actions. Neptune passed over here a little while ago. And now we have Saturn just passed over the Juno to the Black Moon. So you see how pulled this relationship, they've been pulled toward one another. Okay? I also like the Poseidon Neptune, which means that even if they're living in a fairy tale, and they might be, it does appear that it gives them some clarity. Okay, and maybe they have to read newspapers. I don't know, but I do see some clarity. But in any event, I hope that that was helpful. I'm not going to go on anymore. I can go down a lot of rabbit holes, but I don't want to. Time is of the essence. I guess that's the way they say that. In any event, I hope this was enjoyable. I want to thank you all for watching. And until we meet again, as always, I wish you all only happy readings.